So I muted your microphones, pardon me, in the course of the practice, and feel free to unmute them now if you want to say something or chime in. Like I said, I appreciate Ling, you answering that call when I said, hey, has anybody got something I can talk about? Because I feel like it's a valuable thing in this practice that we are all doing this together, that this is real life stuff that we bring to the table when we come here on Saturdays to discuss the ancient Dhamma and apply it to our lives in 2020. But part of that is because these things that we experience, they're universal. Loss is a universal idea. You're experiencing a loss in your life right now, and I get a sense of that and how that's impacting you, and I can feel that, and I have compassion for that, and I want to send you my thoughts of loving kindness. And in that interaction, we collectively raise the Dhamma. We look at change and we look at the Four Noble Truths, and we do it together, and that's important. And this is, like I said, it's because it's a universal thing. We've all experienced loss. People are experiencing loss at an epic rate right now. We're in a difficult time, and people are experiencing loss in loved ones who are passing away, in circumstances changing and loved ones moving away, and in circumstances changing, losing jobs, and things are shifting, and they're not stable. So even as we talk about what we're experiencing, this is not a single moment. There are many changes to come still. And so when you brought this up, I immediately thought of, to build a talk, I immediately thought of Pema Chodron on this. Pema is not, of course, part of our lineage here, Theravadan practice. She's a Tibetan Buddhist nun. She's one of the world's renowned Buddhists right now. A lot of renowned Buddhists are people who are well published, and there are great teachers abound, and we certainly have some of the finest teachers in the world here with L.P. Chali and Ben, Brian. I absolutely believe that's true. But when I think of loss, I think of Pema Chodron, because she's written an epic book called When Things Fall Apart, where she discusses this very topic, and it's kind of a go-to Buddhist book at this point. And part of that is because of how Pema came into this Buddhist practice. She was living a fairly typical lifestyle, doing well with a good job, and her husband had a good job, and they had a nice house, and things were stable and good. And then out of the blue one day, her husband came home and said, I've been having an affair and I'm leaving you. And just without any kind of warning or any kind of notice or anything in her life. And she spoke once, I heard her talk about the sound of the screen door slamming as he left and how profound that was. And I realized when I was listening to that, I could see the situation, and I was like, because we can all appreciate what that would feel like, where we would be. And Pema's entire world completely crumbled. And as a result, she found Buddhism, went and studied with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and eventually became a really well-known Buddhist author who has shared this experience with the world. And Pema does a really good job of looking at this from a very kind of traditional Buddhist standpoint. So I'm going to read a quote. I Googled it. I Googled Pema Chodron loss when you asked me. And I say that because this is a lot of how I practice. So I see something happening in my life and I go look at it. And one way that we do that these days is we Google it. So I Googled Pema Chodron loss, and the first result was a quote. It says, we react against the possibility of loneliness, of death, of not having anything to hold on to. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. If we commit ourselves to staying right where we are, then our experience becomes very vivid. Things become very clear, and there is nowhere to escape. And so, when you look at like having an experience, like having a friend move away, or any of these things where we experience this loss, if you stop and use the practice to look at it, you're going to notice a few things. First, the fundamental thing that we experience is fear. It seems like it's grieving or anger, and it can manifest in a number of different defilements. But the fundamental thing that's happening is fear. We fear the change of what's going to happen. And we do that in part because we have a misunderstanding where we've framed our understanding of the future based on the things that we like and we're holding dear to give us a sense of security. So part of what we hold dear are the people that we love in our life. And we think, okay, well, at least I've got these people I can lean on, that I can call, who'll be there. And therefore I know that nothing bad's ever going to happen in the future. But the truth is that it doesn't necessarily mean bad things will happen in the future, but the holding on to that gives us a warm blanket to tell us everything's going to be okay. But the truth is that's a misunderstanding. Things change. If I've learned anything from COVID-19, it's that the future is not different. COVID-19 is not a thing that happened because everything was going perfectly and everything was going to be that way and nothing was going to change, and then all of a sudden this interrupted that or made that different. COVID-19 is a rising of a set of circumstances and conditions, some of which are bats on the other side of the globe, and some of which are bad bureaucratic stuff going on right here. And because of that, it's just a big mess that we look at as if it's something that's happened all of a sudden. But it didn't happen all of a sudden. It was coming along the whole time. It just, our awareness of it was sudden. We assumed the future would be differently than it was, and we were all stunned when it wasn't. But if you're riding in this Buddhist wave, then instead you say, well, things change. Disease happens. Death is going to happen. And you stop wrapping yourself in a blanket of delusion. Instead, you start looking at the idea that, yes, in fact, things can change. And I'm going to sit right there with it, no matter what that means. I'm going to watch that closely and try to understand the difference in the world and what's happening to me. So I'm experiencing this firsthand right now, too, that you bring up. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one. We're all experiencing some kinds of changes. One of mine is I built a little business that I've been running for years to kind of help provide for myself, but also for my children. And one of my children is my eldest son, and he's my right hand in my business. And just before COVID-19 came, my son came to me and said, Dad, look, I got to go do something else. I want to move to the city. I want to go live my life elsewhere. I want to do some other things. And it totally upended my world. This was before COVID-19, when I still was clinging to the idea that I had built this thing and it was going to be fine, and I was taking care of my son, and all of the things that I needed to do to make sure that he was safe and stable and healthy, and I was safe and stable and healthy, I had done. So I figured I'd be okay. But there you go. My son has to go live in the city and be a kid. And it turned me upside down. I had to go out to the hermitage for 3 days just to adjust myself back to being able to stay with where I was and what I was doing so I could plan for the future. And as COVID came, it meant that he stayed home. He did not move away. He stayed home, and we've stayed close. But it became really clear to me that I needed to let go of him. I needed to let him have his future that wasn't the future that I had in my mind for me, but instead let him build his own. And so I encouraged him to go back to school, and in a couple of weeks, he's going to do that. He's going to go back to school, and he's very excited, and he's going to go do that. And yet that little bit of loss, even as I walk through it and I experience it, it causes me pain and suffering too. Yesterday, I had a total meltdown just 24 hours ago. I'm talking to him on the phone, and walking through it with practice is the thing that I found to be the cure. Because the truth is that I could give you the quick and simple answers about what to do, the thing that everybody else is going to say. You say, my friend is moving away and we're really close and I don't know what this means and I'm experiencing this loss, this fear, this hurt. And I look at that and what everyone else is going to say is, well, the world's different. You've got Zoom now. You'll be able to communicate. Everything will be fine. And you're still going to be able to do that and things will be okay. And they help wrap you in that blanket of warm, loving delusion. But Buddhism doesn't do that. In fact, I would be remiss in this group of people who are practicing well if I didn't say what I've really come to understand would be the difference that the Buddha would say about this. And he would tell you about the change and that understanding the Four Noble Truths and getting that view will help you to find less suffering in your life and to understand how things work differently. Part of that becomes not depending on things that can change and instead being okay when they do. But the thing that the Buddha said that I think rings most deeply true in this is not that superficial level of everything's going to be okay to wrap a blanket around you. He would actually say that the thing that he's seen differently is not just the change, but he's seen delight as a root of suffering. And I've really struggled with this one. Delight as a root of suffering. We delight in those loved ones. We delight in the things that are going on now. And what we spend all of our time doing is trying to create more delightful things. I will feel better if I'm feeling delightful. So I'm going to try to keep my son near me because I delight in his company and working with him and helping him. But I can't do that. That's not realistic. Things will change. So the delight is what will cause me suffering in the end, because I cling to the thing I want to be true, not to the things, and I am averse to the things I don't want to be true. And so I spend so much of my mental power struggling with delighting in this and grasping at it, or not wanting that to happen and being averse to it. And the entire time, the entire emotional storm is an illusion. It's not what's actually happening. So when we practice here and we watch our footsteps and we watch our breath and we come back to what's happening, then we get out of that sea of illusion. We stop seeing that world and we operate in a much better place. How much better is my experience today, since I'm not freaking out about my son leaving me behind and going, and instead I'm reveling in my son is experiencing change. And I'm going to watch that change and be with it. And you know what? I am experiencing change. And I'm going to watch that change and be with it. I'm going to reside here in equanimity. I'm going to abide in my compassion for him. And I'm going to just watch this change and realize the future wasn't going to be different. He was going to go do that. It was going to be the way it was. And if I cling to the way I thought it should have been, then I'm going to hurt. That is a fundamentally true Buddhist concept. That's a fundamentally true thing that's happening. It's universal, and we each see it. So what can you do? Why? You can practice. We always talk about practice, and oftentimes people think what we're saying is, well, sit really still and watch your breath. What we're really talking about is train yourself to be able to come back to that breath, even despite the turmoil around you, even despite the turmoil inside you. Come back to your breath. Stay present. What's happening right now? What we can do when we grieve, when we're afraid, when we're facing these changes, is the first thing we can do is bring ourselves back to what's happening right now. In this moment, you are healthy. You're supported by the earth. You don't have COVID-19. Things are okay. And that's why we come here on Saturdays. But we're not wrapping ourselves in the delusion of everything's going to be great and we'll buy the right stuff and we'll get everything just right and then it's going to be great from then on out. We're not wrapping ourselves in a blanket of illusion. We're wrapping ourselves in the Four Noble Truths and the fundamentals of practice. So I definitely wanted this to be a group discussion, and I know that these things impact every one of us, and I know that when I say practice, it can be it can seem just like a quick response. So if you have questions of what I mean about how to apply the same kind of concept in your practice, please chime in. Or if you have any thoughts, I'd really appreciate you guys sharing with me your wisdom. it's nice to just be able to sit here together with a group of people that we all can say, yeah, you know, we all get this. We really do. We all understand this together. We're all taking steps through this. And you know what that is? That is taking refuge in the Sangha, is what that is seeing each other and taking refuge and saying, yes, as a matter of fact, this is evidenced and true, and I can see it evidenced and true in my life and in the lives of these other people who are working hard and practicing. And so I thank you so much, each and every one of you, for practicing with me, because knowing you are there and taking refuge in you helps me to make my practice stronger. And if there's no other comments, I'm certainly open to it. As always, we say you're welcome to stick around afterwards, or if you want to have a more private discussion, then feel free to message me. But if there's no further discussion, I would turn this over to Ajahn Brian and ask him if he would be willing to share metta and any thoughts that he has with us. Your microphone is on, sir.
Okay, thank you. That was very well said, Pete. Thank you. May we abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may we maintain well-being in ourselves. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their actions and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their homes. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs.
Well, again, I'd invite everybody to Wednesday nights. Wednesday night we practice at 7 p.m. Pacific. I'm terrible about breaking that time down to other time zones, but 7 p.m. Pacific. And we'll be here on Wednesday again. And then if nothing else, we'll see you Saturday next week. And any thoughts, don't ever hesitate to contact me on Facebook. Brian, would you help us pay respects to the Triple Gem?
Sure. Arahang sama sambuddho bhagava Bhutang bhagavantang abhivademi Soakato bhagavata dhammo Dhammang namasami Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Saṅghang namami.
Thank you all for practicing with us. I'd like to take just a moment and send some thoughts of loving kindness to our teacher, Ben, who I know is practicing with his suffering firsthand. What you got to know about Ben is that he is noting right now what he's going through, and he's probably going through a lot. So I'm sending all the merit of this talk and any loving kindness I can to our teacher, Ben. And y'all have a great week, and let me know if you need me. I'll be around, and otherwise, we'll see you on Wednesday.
Could I add something?
Yes, please.
I was going to at the end of your talk when you asked for comments, and I just realized that my mic wasn't on, so I wasn't able to do it. But it reminded me when we were talking about change, things changing, and it reminded me of a Zen saying. I read this somewhere many years ago, but it's always stuck with me. Always has stuck with me. And, we come to expect change too. Sometimes we don't want change. and we're disappointed when things do change. But then sometimes we expect things to change. And when things don't change the way we expected them to change, we're disappointed pretty much either way. But the Zen saying was pretty much this, is, you may have heard it before. Before nirvana, chop wood, carry water. After nirvana, chop wood, carry water.
Thank you, Wayne, for sharing that. That's a nice tail end. Zen is always so good. I agree. Sticky is Zen, because that's the idea. Give you something to work over. And a lot of times those Zen phrases, even applied here in our practice, can be hugely beneficial. But other than that, thank you for that. Anybody else want to chime in one more time before we? Well, I hope you're all well, safe, and happy, and have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.